The guitar string snapped against Marcus's calloused finger, drawing a thin line of blood across his knuckle. He didn't stop playing. Above him, 3 stories up in the obsidian tower that had once been his city's parliament building, the balcony doors remained sealed shut, but he knew she was listening. 6 months ago, Commander Velnara, of the Kethri Dominion, had descended upon New Valencia with fire and precision. The invasion lasted 11 hours. Marcus had watched from the rubble of his apartment building as ships carved burning lines through the skyline, as the cathedral where his mother was buried collapsed into ashen glass. He crawled through streets choked with smoke, carrying his grandfather's guitar, the only thing he'd managed to save. Now he stood in the courtyard of the occupation headquarters, playing a song his father had written before the cancer took him. A love song. A human love song, in the shadow of the alien warlord who had made him an orphan twice over. "You're going to get yourself killed, musician." The voice came from behind him, deep, resonant, filtered through a translation implant. Marcus didn't turn around. He recognized the heavy footfall of Kethri boots, the particular rhythm of a warrior's gait. "Probably," he agreed, transitioning into the second verse. "But she hasn't killed me yet." The Kethri soldier, a male judging by the broader vocal register, moved into his peripheral vision. Blue-gray skin, ritual scars climbing his neck, the insignia of the commander's personal guard on his shoulder plate. "You've been doing this for 12 nights, the soldier said. "Why?" Marcus's fingers found the familiar chord progression without conscious thought. "Because someone should." "Should what? Serenade the conqueror of 7 systems? Mock her with your primitive instruments. Remind her she's not alone." The soldier went silent. Marcus played through the bridge, the melody shifting into something more mournful, a variation his father had never written down, something Marcus had developed in the refugee camps during those first terrible weeks. "She burned your city," the soldier finally said. "Your people, your home. I know." Marcus's voice remained steady, though his chest ached with the weight of it. "I was there. Then why? Because I saw her face." Marcus stopped playing. The sudden silence felt like a wound. When the Council of Clans transmitted their message last week, when they told her that her conquest meant nothing, that they were stripping her rank, her titles, her clan membership, that she'd won them a planet but shamed them by showing mercy to the survivors. He turned to face the soldier now. "I saw her face when she realized that everything she'd done, everything she'd sacrificed, meant nothing to them. That she was alone." The soldier's amber eyes narrowed. "You pity her?" "No." Marcus lifted his guitar again, found the opening notes of another song. "I recognize her." "There's a difference." Above them, almost imperceptibly, the balcony doors cracked open. 3 hours later, Marcus was dragged into the command center by 2 guards who seemed personally offended by his existence. They threw him to the polished floor, stone quarried from the ruins of the financial district, he noted distantly, and stepped back to flank the door. Commander Velnara stood with her back to him, studying a holographic display of the planet. She was tall, even for a Kethri, nearly 7 feet of lean muscle and controlled violence. Her skin was the deep blue of a midnight ocean, marked with the ceremonial scars of 100 campaigns. Her hair, silver-white and bound in warrior's braids, cascaded down her back like frozen lightning. "You are either very brave or very stupid," she said without turning. Her voice was lower than he'd expected. Rougher, like she'd spent too many years shouting orders over the sound of orbital bombardments. "My mother always said they were the same thing." Velnara turned. Her eyes were gold, flecked with darker amber, predator's eyes, built for tracking movement across vast distances. They studied him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "Your mother was wise." She moved closer, each step deliberate, measured. "What do you want, human? Revenge? A quick death? The satisfaction of spitting in my face before my guards break your spine? I want you to listen." She stopped. Something flickered across her features, surprise perhaps, or curiosity. "Listen," she repeated. "To what?" "To whatever you need to hear." Marcus pushed himself to his knees, ignoring the ache in his ribs where the guards had been less than gentle. "To music. To silence. To another voice that isn't giving you orders or demanding your obedience. You think I need such things? I think everyone does." He met her gaze without flinching. "I think you've been a weapon so long you've forgotten you're also a person. I think your own people just told you that your life's work was worthless, and you're standing in a tower surrounded by enemies, wondering if there's any point in going on." Velnara's hand moved to the blade at her hip, a reflex. Realized. Not a threat. She was reaching for the familiar weight of violence because she didn't know what else to do. "You presume much," she said quietly. "I presume nothing. I recognize." Marcus slowly rose to his feet, 6 months ago, I lost everyone I ever loved. My mother was already gone, but I had friends, neighbors, a life. You took all of it. And for the first few weeks, I wanted nothing more than to die. Or to kill you. Preferably both. What changed? I found my guitar in the rubble. He touched the strap across his chest, felt the worn leather beneath his fingers. My father made it. He died when I was 17. Cancer, the kind we couldn't afford to treat. He spent his last months teaching me to play. Teaching me that music wasn't just sound. It was a way of saying things that words couldn't hold. Velnara's eyes dropped to the instrument. And what are you trying to say to me, human? I played guitar under her window. She was the alien warlord who burned my city. Marcus smiled, though it hurt. That's what they'll say about me, if anyone remembers. They'll think I was crazy. Or brave. Or stupid. But that's not why I did it. Then why? Because you looked up at the stars and realized no one was looking back. Because you won a war and lost everything that mattered. Because, he took a breath, because I know what it's like to stand in the ashes of your own life and wonder if there's any reason to keep breathing. The command center was silent, except for the soft hum of the holographic display. Velnara stared at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve, a weapon she didn't recognize. My guards think I should execute you, she said finally. They're probably right. My advisors think you're an assassin. A spy. A distraction sent by the resistance. They're definitely wrong. And what do you think you are, human? Marcus considered the question. A musician. A survivor. Someone who's very tired of being alone. He paused. Someone who thinks maybe you are too. Velnara turned away, but not before he caught the slight tremor in her jaw. Go, she said. Play your songs. But do not think this changes anything between us. I don't. Marcus moved toward the door, then stopped. But, Commander? Tomorrow night, I'm going to play something my father wrote for my mother when she was dying. It's not a love song. It's a promise. A promise that even when everything ends, something remains. He left before she could respond. But that night, when he took his position in the courtyard and began to play, the balcony doors were already open. The summons came 3 weeks later. Marcus had fallen into a routine. Morning work in the refugee processing center, where his ability to read Kethri body language had made him an unofficial translator. Afternoon rest in the cramped apartment he shared with 11 other displaced humans. Evening performances in the courtyard beneath the tower. He'd learned things about Velnara in those weeks. That she paced her balcony when she couldn't sleep, which was often. That she favored slow, melancholic pieces over anything bright or triumphant. That once, during a particularly painful song about loss and memory, he'd heard what might have been a sob carried on the wind. He'd also learned that the Kethri occupation was fracturing. The Council of Clans had sent a delegation to evaluate Velnara's leadership. In practice, this meant a group of sneering aristocrats who countermanded her orders, insulted her lineage, and seemed determined to provoke the human population into open rebellion, just so they could justify a massacre. Velnara was holding her ground. Barely. The commander requires your presence. The soldier who delivered the message was the same one who'd confronted him that first night. Kethras, Marcus had learned. First lieutenant of the personal guard. Loyal to Velnara in a way that went beyond duty. Now, immediately. Marcus set down his guitar and followed. The command center had been transformed. Where before there had been military efficiency, now there was opulence. Kethri banners in crimson and gold, ceremonial weapons mounted on walls, furniture that looked designed more for intimidation than comfort. The council's delegation had clearly been redecorating. Velnara stood at the center of it all, dressed in formal armor that Marcus had never seen before. It was beautiful in a brutal way. Layered plates of dark metal inscribed with the history of her conquests, a cloak of deep blue that matched her skin. She looked like a war goddess. She also looked exhausted. The human, as you requested, Commander. Kethra stepped back, positioning himself near the door with the casual alertness of someone expecting violence. Velnara nodded, her eyes never leaving Marcus. Leave us. Kethras hesitated, a tiny breach of discipline that spoke volumes about his concern. Then he bowed and withdrew. You clean up well, Marcus said, because the silence was unbearable. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Velnara's features. The council demands ceremony, even from those they intend to destroy. Is that what's happening? Destruction? In their way. She moved to the window, looking out over the city she'd conquered. They cannot strip my rank while I hold this territory. Our laws prevent it. So instead they send Delegate Vorkon to assess my fitness for command. The one who ordered the public executions last week. You heard about that? Everyone heard about it. 17 people. For seditious assembly. They were sharing food. Velnara's jaw tightened. I countermanded the order. I know. That's why I'm still playing songs under your window instead of sharpening knives with the resistance. Marcus moved to stand beside her, close enough to see the tension in her shoulders, the shadows under her eyes. What do you need? I need. She stopped. Breathed. The council delegation will dine with me tonight. A formal affair. Politics and poison wrapped in pleasant conversation. Sounds delightful. Delegate Vorkan has expressed interest in human culture. Specifically, in the primitive musical traditions of your conquered species. The bitterness in her voice could have etched glass. He wishes to be entertained. Marcus understood. You want me to play for them. I want you to survive the evening. Velnara turned to face him, and for the first time he saw something like fear in her eyes. Vorkan is not like me. He does not see humans as people to be governed. He sees you as animals to be broken. If you anger him, then he'll do what? Kill me? Torture me? Marcus shrugged. I've been expecting that since the first night. This is not a jest. I know it isn't. He reached out, slowly, carefully, and touched her arm. She flinched, but didn't pull away. I know what I'm walking into. I know the risks. But you asked me to come, which means you need something tonight that you can't get from your soldiers or your advisors or your protocols. And what is that? Someone on your side. He squeezed gently, then released her. Someone who isn't afraid of them. Someone who can remind you that you're not the monster they want you to be. Velnara stared at him for a long moment. Then so quietly he almost missed it. I burned your city. You did. I killed your people. You did. Why do you not hate me? Marcus considered the question. Really considered it. The way he had during countless sleepless nights. Because hate is easy. It's comfortable. It tells you exactly who you are, and who your enemies are, and what you're supposed to do about it. He paused. I've done easy. I've done comfortable. They didn't help. And this does? Playing music for the creature who destroyed everything you loved? You're not a creature. You're a person who did terrible things for reasons I don't fully understand yet. And yes, he met her gaze steadily. This helps. Because every night I play, I'm choosing something other than hate. I'm choosing to see you as someone who can change. Someone worth reaching. What if you're wrong? Then at least I'll have spent my last months making music instead of sharpening knives. He smiled. That seems like a decent way to go. The dinner was exactly as horrible as Marcus had expected. Delegate Vorkan was a massive Kethri, broader than any Marcus had seen before, his blue skin mottled with ritual scars that seemed designed to intimidate rather than honor. He sat at the head of the table, Velnara's table, in Velnara's command center, and held court like he already owned the planet. His entourage was worse. Sycophants and soldiers, all of them looking at Velnara with barely concealed contempt, and at Marcus with open disgust. So this is the human pet, Vorkan said when Marcus was brought forward. The one who howls beneath your window each night. I had wondered if the reports were exaggerated. He is a musician, Velnara said, her voice carefully neutral. His people consider it an art form. Art. Vorkan made the word sound obscene. A curious concept for such primitive creatures. Tell me, human, can you actually make sounds that approximate music? Or merely noise that your simple minds interpret as pleasant? Marcus felt the familiar cold weight of his guitar in his hands. He'd chosen something specific for tonight, something that had been his father's favorite, passed down through 3 generations of his family. I can play, he said. Whether it qualifies as music is for you to judge. Bold. Vorkan leaned back, a predator settling in to enjoy the show. Very well. Entertain us. Marcus played. He started soft, a simple melody that his great-grandmother had learned during the water wars, when music was one of the few things that kept people human in the camps. Then he layered in harmonics, building complexity note by note, chord by chord. It was a song about survival, about holding on to beauty when the world was burning, about the stubborn, defiant act of creating something gentle in the face of destruction. Halfway through, he looked up at Velnara. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't name, something raw and hungry and desperately sad. When the song ended, silence filled the room. Acceptable, Vorkan said finally, though his voice had lost some of its mocking edge. For a human. But tell me, can your primitive instrument play something with more vigor? Something suited to warriors rather than weeping children? Marcus's fingers found a new position on the strings. I know a song about a battle. Would you like to hear it? Please. It was a lie, of course. The song he played wasn't about battle. It was about a farmer watching soldiers march past his field, knowing they would trample his crops and burn his home and leave nothing but ashes. It was about powerlessness. About the way war destroyed everything it touched, even the victors. But it was fast, and loud, and martial enough that Vorkin and his entourage nodded along approvingly, completely missing the point. Velnara didn't miss it. Her eyes never left Marcus's face, and he could see her understanding every word he wasn't singing. When the dinner finally ended, when Vorkin and his followers had retired to their quarters to scheme and plot, Velnara found Marcus in the corridor. "You took a risk tonight," she said quietly. That second song was exactly what he deserved. Marcus flexed his aching fingers. Music is like that. It can say things that words can't. And sometimes it can say things to one person, while another hears something completely different. "What were you saying?" "To me?" He looked at her. Really looked. Seeing past the armor and the scars, and the weight of command. "That I see you. That I know you understood what the song was really about. That whatever happens next, you're not facing it alone." Velnara was quiet for a long moment. Then, so softly he almost missed it. "No one has ever... I know." He reached out, brushed his fingers against hers. The briefest contact. There and gone. "Get some sleep, Commander. Tomorrow's probably going to be worse." He walked away before she could respond. But he heard her whisper, just before he turned the corner. "My name is Nara. When we are alone, you may use it." The assassination attempt came on the 43rd night. Marcus was in the middle of a particularly complex piece, something he'd been composing over the past weeks, a musical diary of everything he'd witnessed and felt since the invasion, when he heard the sound of breaking glass from above. Then screaming. Then weapons fire. He was moving before conscious thought caught up, abandoning his guitar and sprinting toward the tower entrance. The guards stationed there were dead, throats cut, bodies still warm. Kethri blood was darker than human, almost black in the dim lighting. Inside, chaos. Soldiers in unfamiliar armor fought Velnara's personal guard through corridors that had become kill zones. Marcus pressed himself against a wall as a squad rushed past, not caring enough to notice one human in the midst of their coup. He knew where she would be. He'd spent enough nights studying her routines, watching her silhouette pace behind the balcony doors. The commander's quarters were on the 3rd floor, accessible by a service corridor that the attacking forces hadn't bothered to secure. Marcus climbed through smoke and noise, heart hammering against his ribs. The door was locked. He could hear combat on the other side, the clash of blades, the distinctive hum of Kethri energy weapons. "Nara!" He pounded against the metal. "Nara." A pause in the fighting. Then the door slid open, and Marcus found himself face to face with Commander Velnara, blood splattered and breathing hard, a curved blade in each hand. Behind her, 3 bodies in council colors. "You should not be here," she said. "Probably not." He pushed past her into the room, looking for anything he could use as a weapon. How many? 40, perhaps 50. Vorkon's personal force, supplemented by local collaborators. She moved to the window, checking sightlines with the efficiency of someone who'd survived 100 ambushes. He intended to claim I had been killed by human resistance fighters, a justification for the purge he's been planning since he arrived. That's thorough. He is not a subtle creature. Nara turned back to him, and for the first time Marcus saw something like concern in her expression. "You must leave. There is a passage beneath the tower. My guards can escort you to safety. Your guards are busy dying. And I'm not leaving. Marcus, I'm not leaving you." The words came out harder than he intended. "I've spent 43 nights playing music under your window. I've watched you pace and struggle and fight to be something better than what they made you. I'm not walking away now." Nara stared at him. In the distance, the sounds of battle grew closer. "You will die," she said quietly. "Maybe, but I'll die doing something that matters. Something I chose." He found a ceremonial dagger on her desk, decorative, but sharp enough. "Now tell me where we're going and how we're getting there." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then something shifted in her expression, a wall crumbling, a decision being made. "There is a communication array on the roof," she said. "If I can reach it, I can broadcast to my loyalist forces in the outer system. But the access corridor will be heavily guarded. Then we go through them." "Marcus." She crossed the distance between them in 3 steps, close enough that he could smell smoke and blood and something else, something that reminded him of winter winds and distant stars. "I cannot protect you and fight my way through. If you come with me, you may die. Do you understand this? I understand. And you choose it anyway. For me?" Her voice cracked on the last word. "The warlord who burned your city?" He reached up, touched her face. A gesture he'd never have dared before, that somehow felt inevitable now. I choose you. The person beneath the title. The one who paces at night because she can't sleep. The one who listened to my music and heard what I was really saying. He paused. The one who told me her name. Nara closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were bright with something that might have been tears. Stay behind me, she said. Do exactly as I say, and if I fall, you won't. If I fall, take my blade and keep fighting. Promise me. Marcus wrapped his fingers around the dagger. I promise. They moved. The corridor was a nightmare of blood and fire. Nara fought like nothing Marcus had ever seen, a whirlwind of precise violence, her blades finding gaps in armor with surgical accuracy. But there were too many enemies, and she was already wounded, already tired from weeks of political warfare. They made it halfway to the roof access before the trap closed. Vorkon himself stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 6 of his elite guards. He was bleeding from a wound on his shoulder, but his smile was wide and predatory. Commander, he said, voice dripping with satisfaction. And her pet human. How fitting that you should die together. You have miscalculated, delegate. Nara's voice was steady, but Marcus could see the slight tremor in her sword arm. My forces in the outer system have been neutralized. Did you think I would move against you without securing my position first? Vorkon gestured, and his guards spread out, cutting off any retreat. The council will mourn your death, of course. A great tragedy, the legendary Velnara, killed by human terrorists. Your name will be used to justify generations of conquest. My name means nothing to me. Nara shifted her weight, preparing for a final charge. But my honor does. Honor. Vorkon spat. You lost your honor when you showed mercy to these creatures. When you allowed them to live in their camps instead of ending their miserable existence. When you let one of them serenade you like some lovesick adolescent from a clan epic. I showed wisdom. Something your bloodline has never understood. Vorkan's eyes narrowed. Kill them both. The guards lunged. Nara met them with a snarl, her blade singing through the air. But 6 against 1, wounded, exhausted. Marcus watched her stumble, watched a blade open a gash along her ribs. He didn't think. He moved. The ceremonial dagger was meant for ceremony, not combat. It felt wrong in his hand, balanced for display rather than killing. But Marcus had spent 30 years learning to make music with his hands, developing the precision and speed that let him play pieces most humans couldn't follow. He buried the blade in the neck of the guard closest to Nara. Everything after that was chaos. Marcus fought with nothing like Nara's skill. He fought like a desperate animal, all instinct and terror, and the absolute refusal to let her die. He took wounds, a slash across his arm, something that punched through his side and brought fire with it. But he bought her time. Enough time for Nara to rally, to put down 2 more guards with vicious efficiency. They were still going to lose. And then, from somewhere below, the sound of weapons fire. Not council weapons, something heavier, military grade. Kethras burst through a side door at the head of a squad of Nara's personal guard. Commander. The loyalist, they've broken through the blockade. Vorkan's face twisted with rage. No. Your fleet is burning, delegate. Kethras leveled his weapon at the politician's chest. Surrender? Or join it? For a moment, Marcus thought Vorkon would fight anyway, would choose death over the humiliation of capture. Then the massive Kethri dropped his blade and raised his hands. This changes nothing, he said quietly. The council will send others. Let them. Nara's voice was iron and ice. I will be waiting. Later in the medical bay, Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness while Kethri healers worked to repair the damage to his body. The wound in his side had been worse than he'd realized. Some kind of poison on the blade, now neutralized but leaving him weak and feverish. He woke, once to find Nara sitting beside him. She'd removed her armor, wearing simple clothes that made her look smaller somehow. More vulnerable. You should be resting, he mumbled. So should you. She reached out, brushed hair from his forehead with surprising gentleness. You saved my life. I stabbed a guy in the neck. You did the actual saving. You gave me hope when I had none. Her voice dropped to something barely above a whisper. No one has ever, in my entire life, no one has ever fought for me. Not for my title, or my conquests, or what I could give them. Just for me. Marcus tried to respond, but the drugs were pulling him back under. The last thing he felt before sleep claimed him was the pressure of her hand wrapped around his. 3 months later, the first human representative took his seat on the Planetary Governance Council. It wasn't Marcus. He'd refused the position, citing a complete lack of political skill and a deep personal aversion to meetings. But he'd suggested the name, and Nara had listened. And now Dr. Sarah Chen was navigating the complex waters of alien bureaucracy with the same determination she'd brought to running the refugee medical corps. The reconstruction was slow, painful work. The Council of Clans had recalled Vorkan to face charges, not for the attempted coup, but for the embarrassment of failing at it. Kethri politics, Marcus was learning, had their own particular brand of justice. Nara remained in command, but her role was changing. Less conqueror, more administrator. She'd started learning human customs, human history, human music. Some nights, she would sit on her balcony while Marcus played, and she would ask questions about the songs, where they came from, what they meant, who had written them. Other nights, they simply sat together in silence, watching the city slowly heal itself. It was on one of these nights that she finally asked the question he'd been expecting since the beginning. What happens now? Marcus set down his guitar, looked at her profile silhouetted against the lights of New Valencia. What do you want to happen? I do not know. She turned to face him, and he saw uncertainty there, something he'd never have believed possible in those early days. I have spent my entire life knowing exactly what I wanted. Conquest. Victory. Honor for my clan. Now you've lost all of that. And you're trying to figure out what's left. Yes. The word came out cracked. Fragile. I have been a weapon, Marcus. For as long as I can remember. That was my purpose. My value. She paused. You were right, that first night. I had forgotten I was also a person. And now I remember. Because of you. She reached out, took his hand. A gesture that had become familiar over the weeks, something neither of them mentioned but both relied on. But I do not know how to be a person. I do not know what I want, or who I am without war, or whether I can ever become something other than what they made me. Marcus shifted closer on the balcony bench. When my father was dying, he told me something. He said that people aren't fixed things, they're more like songs. They change with every performance. They grow and shift and become something new, even if the basic melody stays the same. And what melody am I? I don't know yet. He smiled, but I'd like to find out. If you'll let me. Nara was quiet for a long moment. Then, carefully, like someone approaching a wild animal, she leaned toward him. Her forehead touched his, a gesture Marcus had learned was profoundly intimate in Kethri culture. A sharing of breath. A promise of trust. My people have a ritual, she said quietly. For those who wish to bond across the barriers of rank and clan. It is not common. Most would consider it beneath someone of my station. What does it involve? An exchange of promises. Before witnesses, if we wish it to be formal. Or alone, if we prefer it to remain between us. She pulled back slightly, meeting his eyes. I would give you my word that I will protect you, cherish you, stand beside you against whatever storms may come. And what would I give you? Whatever you have to offer. Whatever you choose. Her voice trembled slightly. I have taken so much from you, Marcus. Your city. Your people. Your peace. I would not take anything more. I would only receive. Whatever you are willing to give. Marcus thought about the first night. The broken string, the blood on his knuckle, the desperate act of defiance that had somehow led to this moment. He thought about his father's guitar, and his mother's grave beneath the rubble of the cathedral, and all the hate he'd chosen not to carry. He thought about Nara, the warlord, the commander, the woman who paced her balcony at night and listened to human love songs and wept when she thought no one could hear. I would give you my music, he said finally. Every song I know and every song I'll ever learn. I would give you my presence, nights like this one, watching the city heal, talking about nothing and everything. I would give you my honesty, even when it's hard. My patience, even when you struggle. He paused. And I would give you my heart, whatever's left of it after everything that's happened. Nara's breath caught. That is more than I deserve, probably. But it's not about deserving. He lifted their joined hands, pressed them against his chest. It's about choosing. And I choose you, Nara. The person you were, the person you're becoming. All of it. She kissed him then. Not the fierce, claiming gesture he might have expected from a warrior, but something soft and searching. A question more than a statement. A hope more than a demand. When they finally parted, she was crying. He'd never seen her cry before, not even during the worst of the political battles, or the long nights of recovery. I do not know if I can be what you need, she whispered. Neither do I. That's what makes it worth trying. Below them, New Valencia glittered with reconstruction. Human and Kethri worked side by side now, rebuilding, replanting, slowly learning to see each other as neighbors rather than conquerors and conquered. It would take years, maybe generations. The scars of invasion didn't heal quickly, and there would be setbacks and conflicts and moments when everything seemed destined for failure. But sitting on that balcony, holding hands with the woman who had burned his world and somehow become his future, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since before the ships appeared in the sky. Hope. Play me something, Nara said softly, wiping her eyes with a warrior's embarrassed impatience. Something from your father's collection. Something about new beginnings. Marcus retrieved his guitar, settled it against his body like an old friend. His fingers found the opening chords of a song his father had written when Marcus was born. A lullaby that was also a promise, about the way love could grow in the strangest places. He played, and she listened, and the city hummed with the sound of healing. And somewhere in the streets below, a human child asked her Kethri neighbor to teach her a word in the alien tongue. A word for gratitude, for unexpected friendship, for the stubborn refusal to let hate win. The neighbor smiled and taught her. It was, Marcus thought, a decent way to begin. YouTube description. 1,000 characters. Marcus lost everything when Commander Vilnara's fleet burned his city to the ground. His family, his home, his entire life vanished in 11 hours of fire. All he had left was a guitar and a choice. Instead of joining the resistance or seeking revenge, Marcus stood beneath the alien warlord's window and played. Night after night, he filled the ruins with human music, songs of grief, memory, and stubborn hope, until the woman who destroyed his world finally listened. Vilnara was never just a conqueror. Stripped of her clan, hunted by her own people, and nearly assassinated, she was as alone as the man who sang to her. When a coup threatens to kill them both, a human musician and an alien warlord must decide whether to keep being what the galaxy made them, or become something entirely new together. An HFI sci-fi romance about healing after devastation, choosing compassion over hate, and the song that changed an empire. Key words: HFI, sci-fi, alien warlord, human musician, occupied city, alien invasion, forbidden romance, war and love, galactic politics, redemption arc, human resilience, interspecies bond, alien commander, space drama, sci-fi romance, post-war healing, rebellion, sci-fi audiobook.